Soon we saw them young males with their manes just beginning to sprout. We began to try herding them away from our camp. At first they didn't want to go. They were curious and a bit playful. But eventually they wandered off into the night. We drove back and oh dear. The first thing we saw was the flickering of flames. We had left the front flap out of our tent loose, and the wind had blown it against the stove. Luckily, we had a fire extinguisher extinguisher in the car and soon put the fire out. Then we heard a story from Aniengo and Thomas. Aniengo was just going to serve our supper. Suddenly we looked up and saw a lion's head framed in the entrance of the tent yelling loudly. He hurled saucepans and flying pans at it. They had vanished and Aniengo called a warning to Thomas, who was resting in his little tent. Quickly Thomas closed the flap, but to his horror, a moment later the whole tent shook and a great gash appeared in the side of it. A lion's head peered in through the opening. Thomas, like Aniengo, pelted an intruder with everything he could see. Fortunately, instead of getting angry, the lions wandered away, peering cautiously into the night. Aniengo, with his sharp African eyes, saw the third lion, the one who had visited Hugo and me, following his two companions behind the tents. That was when he and Thomas decided to run for safety. It was silly of them because lions, like cats, love to chase running fast moving things, but they were lucky they made it. Obviously, obviously we could not sleep in our torn and burned tents that night. We ate our supper, which was still hot. Then we packed up a few essentials and drove to a little long log cabin nearby. We had stayed there before. The young couple who had been living in it had just left, so we knew it was empty. Imagine how we felt when, as we drove toward it, we saw a very large black mane lying on the veranda, and behind the cabin was his lioness feasting on a freshly caught antelope. Eventually, the male left. We managed to get into the cabin without disturbing the lioness. And Aniengo and Thomas bowled themselves into the little wooden kitchen hut for the night. No wonder they thought that my son, born so soon afterward, should have been called Simba. As it was, he became known as Grub to his family and closest friends. There was no very good reason for this. His real name is Hugo Eric Lewis, but Grub was a tiny baby. Hugo and I were studying hyenas in Ngorongoro crater. You probably think of hyenas as skulk, skulking, cowardly scavengers waiting for scraps left by the lions. Don't believe it. They are great hunters going after wild beasts and zebras, as well as smaller creatures. Quite often, especially in a crater, they actually lose their skills to scavenging lions. They try to defend their prey fiercely. At such times. They do also feed on remains of lions' kills, but they do not always wait patiently until the lion has finished. If there are enough of them, they try to drive the lions away. Hyenas are actually very interesting creatures, like chimps. They they wander around in little groups of friendly individuals like chimps. They have very distinct personalities and fascinating behavior. Like chimps, they are territorial and might kill hyenas from neighboring clans.